Hey guys, and welcome to the Lean Girl YouTube channel. Today's video is a new segment which I am really excited about. We are going to be talking to some amazing experts on topics that are linked to building our leanest bodies ever, and just experts that can answer more of our questions around various topics that are linked to getting lean, being healthy, showing up each day with more energy, with more aliveness, and just living life to the fullest. So today I am really pumped to talk to an incredible woman who is going to shed some light on the topic of gut health, which I feel like it's definitely becoming more of like a popular topic and more, I don't know if you would say it's like trendy at the moment. So seeing a lot of posts, seeing a lot of people talking more about it, which I think is good because I think it's very important. But at the same time, I think there probably are a lot of questions and maybe some misconceptions that we have around gut health and how that impacts our weight loss, how that impacts our health, our energy, our mood, and all of that stuff. So today we have a very special guest. I think that you probably will be the first guest ever on the Lean Girl YouTube channel. So this is a moment. Besides for Gilan, shame. I never acknowledge him, but he's featured. He's featured now and again. But I think you will be the first official guest. So I want to officially welcome Meg, the good gut guru, who is here to answer all of our burning questions about gut health and how we practically start using the strategies that I hope to share today to start improving our gut health and help us further on our lean bod journey. So welcome, Meg. It's so lovely to have you here. I wish we could be in person, but this is almost as good.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I didn't realize I was the first one, so no pressure. But I'm glad to be here.
At least there's no one to compare you to. You're going to be our first and most amazing. So Meg, you obviously are a specialist when it comes to gut health and nutrition. And I would love to just start off by you just sharing a bit more about you, a bit more about what got you on this journey, why you are so passionate about it, which you very clearly are from all of the amazing content that you put up online. You guys, by the end of this, will definitely be following Meg on Instagram. Well, I'll just put up her little Instagram block here so that you can follow her. But Meg, maybe if you can just start off, I think personal story is always such an amazing thing to hear, and just to let us know how you got into gut health.
Okay. It started when I was thinking about these questions yesterday. I was like, it's been actually such a long time that I've been in this space, but without even really knowing it. I started struggling when I was about 16 with like strange reactions to food. I'd be very tired if I ate gluten, and I had hormonal acne. I started getting anxiety, just general fatigue, and I didn't realize that it was gut related because there wasn't much out about gut health, and I wasn't necessarily in that sphere. And then those problems just kept on getting worse because I didn't change the way I ate, even though I ate very healthy in terms of normal standards. But there was clearly a problem with my gut. And then I started getting really bad hormonal acne all over my jawline, and it would never resolve. And I was actually put onto a whole year of antibiotics, broad spectrum, which is an absolute atomic bomb on your gut. And then things just kind of spiraled from there. And then a friend said to me, you need to read this book. It was from a German author about gut health. So I ordered it here and I started reading it. And that's kind of where I started understanding more about the gut. And then I did his kind of protocol, which I would never suggest to anyone now because the science has advanced so much. But that's how I kind of started my journey. And then I studied it through IAN. And now I'm a health coach. And it's just realizing what the gut is and how it works has changed my whole life. Like, I don't struggle with anxiety, fatigue, hormonal acne. I'm not bloated and in pain anymore. And I was like, daily I was in pain. So yeah, that's why I'm so passionate about it, because it changed my whole life. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I think one of the biggest issues is that people don't link all of these things that they're feeling to their gut health. They feel like they're unrelated. I think we even do that with food. We're eating all of these things and we're like, why are we so tired? Let me have some more coffee, when it's like, hello. There's one thing that's directly linked to how you're feeling, and that's, the food that we're eating and obviously our gut. And when it comes
Yeah.
to the new sort of terms that I'm hearing, or people are like, your gut is your second brain, right? So I've heard this, and I think I've even repeated it because I'm like, that sounds so intriguing. What does that mean to you, or what does it mean in your understanding?
So yeah, that the connection between the gut and the brain is very hot on the research scene at the moment, because essentially there's a vagus nerve that runs from your brain into your gut, and they're communicating constantly to each other. So if you've ever had that feeling of like being nervous for something and then you get a funny tummy, or you can feel it in your tummy like butterflies, that shows that direct link from your brain to your gut. So yeah, and your brain also produces serotonin and dopamine. Even though serotonin doesn't necessarily cross the blood-brain barrier, they still good mood feelings are produced by your gut bacteria. And often cases we can see when there's a depressed person diagnosed with depression, there's often a depressed gut. So, and vice versa, they influence each other. So it's fascinating, and that area is still quite new. A lot of debate about how closely linked, but yeah, definitely good gut health, better mental space or health.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely experienced that myself. I think on my whole fitness journey, like I feel like when my digestion is not good and not on point, like it certainly impacts my mood, it impacts my energy. And I guess that in turn impacts, the kind of results that you can get even in the gym or with your diet. How closely can you stick to it? I always say to the girls, like, when you feel like shit, you eat like shit, and when you feel good, you want to do more of those things, you want to eat better, you want to exercise, you want to do all of those things. So I think that I can definitely resonate with that. And yeah, I've also had, times in my life where my gut has been good and times in my life where it hasn't been bad. And I was actually chatting to a friend of mine last night, and I was like, the ironic thing is, when your gut is not feeling great, you do all of these things, and then you're like, okay, it's good. Like my gut's back to where it should be. And then you stop doing all the things that actually made you feel good. And then I guess it cycles back into a place of not being where we want it to be. So I'm excited to understand a little bit more about the things that we can start doing practically. How do we know? So maybe let's start with, how do we know, like, what our gut, or where our gut health is? Like, how do we know if it's good, if it's bad, if it should be a concern? I guess everyone should pay attention to it, but how do we know sort of where our gut health sits?
Okay, so yeah, the general consensus really, if you've got bad gut health, you're going to know it. You're going to have bloating, food sensitivities, pain, brain fog is a big one, just general fatigue. That's why I say it's one of the points is that gut health is overall health. So I think if you are struggling with any of those areas, I think that's how you would assess your gut. If you're feeling, and I know there's a lot of stress in our lives, and that impacts our gut directly as well. So everything plays into your gut health. And in terms of assessing it, there isn't a one size fits all on what a healthy gut looks like. Like, we're not looking at a model and saying that's the perfect gut, but we do know that a more diverse gut is a healthier gut. So, and once your gut is healthier, you feel it in other areas. So I think as a general guideline, if you are struggling with things like your digestive issues, firstly, that's like one of the signs. And then other signs, like I mentioned, fatigue, anxiety, acne, and even things like joint pains, arthritis, all those inflammatory conditions often can be linked back to the health of your gut.
Yeah, I mean that is, I think digestive issues for a lot of women are like up there, and I think it can be quite a frustrating journey
Mm,
to figure out what exactly is wrong. Is it a food intolerance? Is it something like IBS? Is
yeah.
it just overall gut health? And I would assume, I mean, I would love your opinion. Like, would the go-to if you're having digestive issues is to focus on improving your gut health instead of just trying to cut foods out? Or so what would be your sort of go-to
Mm.
if you are having digestive issues?
So yeah, so the term IBS often cases a doctor, if they, especially if they're not specialized in that area, they would say that you have IBS when they can't, when they've ruled out the other options. They don't know what else is wrong with you. So they say, okay, it's IBS.
Yeah.
In many cases, it's not actually IBS. It could just be a damaged gut microbiome, which can be healed. So yes, there's definitely IBS, but in many cases, it's actually a damaged gut microbiome. So yeah, cutting out foods in the long run is terrible for your gut. You want to be adding in foods. It's all about variety, and you would have seen from maybe from my page is that I'm pro adding in rather than cutting out,
Yeah.
because that's what we see is the best approach to gut health, and it's more about adding in the right foods. So if you are struggling with your gut, yes. So my first thing is to make a food diary, which I know for some girls is quite triggering, if they've come from an eating disorder. But to note what foods are actually irritating you, and then you would do a controlled kind of reintroduction of those foods, working with someone closely. In many cases, it could just be dairy. You're having a little bit of trouble to digest, which is common for most
Yeah.
humans.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely step one is just the food diary, and always to, I know it's difficult, but to work with someone who can help you reintroduce those foods. Um,
Yeah, I think having some support and guidance is always great, especially if you feel like a bit frustrated and you don't know what you're doing. Maybe let's take
yeah.
a step back, and I actually want to ask. So, what are the main culprits for creating gut issues? Like, what is it that we're doing that is impacting our guts negatively that we could perhaps avoid in the future in like a practical way?
So yeah, some of the things that we obviously can't change now is your mode of delivery into the world. So C-section babies often have lower microbial diversity, but we can't change that, and you can fix it. You can come round again. Things like for moms, if you can, breastfeeding for as long as you can. That's a big one. Just equipping your babies with the most gut bacteria as you can, or good stuff. And then for us, the general thing is like overuse of medications, antibiotics, like in my case. General things like ibuprofen is really not a great one for your gut.
Hmm.
And then the common ones like sugar, high fat, lots of unprocessed foods, and then stress is also another major one. So all of those things kind of impact your gut negatively. Medication, also lots of alcohol, which I think is very rare with your audience. So, but if you are going to drink, like the things that benefit your gut are things that have more color in them. So red wine is it's a source of polyphenols, which are beneficial for your gut bacteria.
Hmm. I was actually going to ask you which would be the best alcohol for your gut. So the red wines and the darker alcohols.
Yeah, red wine is great, and coffee also is full of polyphenols. So there's things that we think are negative, but actually in small amounts they can benefit actually.
Well, I'm quite interested to know about the coffee. I'm always like, I need to cut down on the coffee. So, in terms of coffee and caffeine, how does that negatively impact the gut, or does it at all?
So no, the studies actually show that coffee I would say in small amounts, not overdoing it like 6 cups a day. Small amounts, maybe 2 cups a day of good quality coffee have shown to actually benefit your gut bacteria because they have polyphenols which feed your beneficial gut bacteria.
That is amazing. I feel like we can end this
Yeah.
interview now. I'm gonna go have some coffee.
Yeah.
I'm so happy. Now we love you. Now we love you.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I've got a couple of questions here, so I also want to make sure that I managed to get to all of them. So I guess that was starting on the misconceptions when it comes to gut health, but that caffeine is perhaps something negative. So what else are
Yeah.
misconceptions when it comes to gut health that you hear all the time that you're like, that is, when I hear stuff sometimes online about fat loss, I'm like, that's BS. So what is it that you hear that you're
Yeah.
like, that is total nonsense?
Yeah, there's so many things, but yeah, the main thing is that I often encounter people suggesting that gut health is a supplement. It's like, okay, I've got this issue, I'm going to take this probiotic, and it'll be fine, or I'm going to go to the pharmacy and clear out their digestive supplements, and I'm going to be sorted. And it's not that. Gut health is completely a lifestyle change. Obviously, there's space for supplementing. I think that's with anything. But to sort out your diet and your lifestyle is absolutely the first step. To go for a random probiotic that some influencer is promoting that's what gets my back up. So yeah, that's the one of them.
Yes.
And the other is everyone thinks gut health is quite gimmicky. Like, oh, I'm going to take this test that I bought at Clicks, and it's going to tell me if I'm allergic to, well, if I'm intolerant to gluten, which is not the case. You can't actually test intolerance other than lactose. You can test for allergies, but not intolerance. And there's a lot of, those stool sample tests, those home kits. Like the science isn't there yet. And also to be doing that by yourself at home in an environment that's not sterile. And I mean, I don't recommend the gimmicks.
I'm like, whenever I'm seeing that, like, just put a stool sample, I'm like, okay, close browser. I will not be doing that.
Yeah.
But I think that that's so true. And even when I was like having a lot of digestive issues, I was getting to a point of desperation. And our friend Google, I mean, I was Googling all of these different things, and they seem legit. But based on all the research that I did, which I'm sure you'll confirm, unfortunately, there is no way to test for intolerances. I lied to you. I did one test where I sent a strand of my hair. Okay. I'm actually embarrassed now. But I sent a strand to my hair, like to America. And
Oh, no.
they honestly told me that I was allergic to the most strange things. Like, I feel like they have like just a lottery ball thing, and then it just spits out like a random foods, which I would basically never eat anyways, that I was apparently like allergic to. It was like sardines and walnut. They were just like more random things that I've had no issue of ever. So I think that a lot of it is just a money-making scam.
Exactly. That's 100%. I even had on the thing mentioned hair analysis because it's a popular one. People would rather send a piece of their hair than a stool sample. And just for sake of the podcast, there's no test that you can take that will show you what you're intolerant to other than a lactose intolerance because it's actually measuring the enzyme. So that just clears that one. There's no test.
Good. Thank you for that. Do you hear that, girls? I'm like, we all just want to pay. We just sort of be like, just tell me the problem. But yeah, so if in that case, if you do suspect that you do have an intolerance of some kind or you have a food sensitivity, so just explain to me the difference between food sensitivity and intolerance, because I think a lot of people, like, I don't know why, it almost seems like it's in fashion now to be like, I'm gluten intolerant, I'm lactose intolerant. I'm like, it's so unnecessary. Most people are not, it's actually not the case, right?
Yeah. So I'll also just talk about allergies because food allergies are 100% valid. Those you can test for. You can do skin prick tests or blood tests. And those would be your kind of response that it's called an immediate antigen response. So that is if you were allergic to peanuts and you ate a peanut and then you went into, or you stop breathing. So that's an allergic. Yeah, that's an allergic response where your body's actually producing histamine. But when it comes to intolerance, the response is usually delayed. So it would be maybe 3 or 4 hours afterwards, and it's manageable. It's not going to put you into the hospital unless you really are quite sensitive.
Yeah.
So intolerance and sensitivity are very closely linked, and a lot of the times it actually comes down to a damaged gut microbiome. We see so many food sensitivities, and people start cutting out all these foods, and their diet becomes like apples, popcorn, and toast because they just their gut is hurting everything they eat, and then they think they're intolerant to those foods, but they're not. They have a damaged gut microbiome. They need to heal that and then introduce those foods back. So
I'm just on that point. I think a lot of it even becomes mental. Like when people think that they have these intolerances and then they start, if they have that like tiny piece of chocolate, like, oh my word, you see the lactose. Like, do you also find that sometimes it's more of like a mental thing?
yeah, often cases, I think more so with clients that come to me, they're at that point now where there's actual physical issues happening with them and they've found no help from doctors, or not saying that doctors don't know about digestive issues, but they don't know where the problem is stemming from. And I think that's a big problem in South Africa, is that we aren't getting to the root cause when it comes to Western medicine. But yeah, I think it is very trendy to be lactose intolerant and gluten-free,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying that those things are bad. I don't drink much dairy either because we don't agree so much. So yeah, I have a sensitivity to dairy, and often cases, those are your common ones. If you've got a damaged gut, you will find that you are quite sensitive to those foods.
To gluten and dairy. And so that was actually quite an interesting point that you brought up in terms of, so if I'm keeping my food diary as perhaps a first step and trying to assess, what are the foods that are triggering me, how soon after that would you feel like, okay, it was the cabbage that I had for lunch, or maybe it was the chocolate I had an hour ago? Like, how do you go about starting to pinpoint which foods it sort of is, or how long would you see the result or digestive issue from the specific food?
So generally, if it's a sensitivity, I would say within 3 hours you can kind of see that response will normally start happening, bloating, headaches, whatever the case is. And that can kind of carry on until the next morning. So that's why I always suggest people they keep a diary for 2 weeks, because sometimes you won't know, was it chickpeas, cabbage, chocolate, or toast. So it's about tracking it for a longer period of time and then actually pinpointing. It's like being an investigator. Actually, you need to listen to your body and try and figure it out.
Yes, I guess, and then you would like have that food again, I suppose, that you would say, okay, well, I think perhaps it was the cabbage, and then you would stay close to the bathroom and you would have that cabbage again.
Yeah, and then you can see if it is the cabbage. And then from there, I wouldn't say cut it out completely. It's very unlikely that you're going to be intolerant to cabbage, but you've probably got some damage to your gut, or there isn't enough gut bacteria to digest that food. So we talk about training your gut as you would train for a marathon. You wouldn't train for a CrossFit competition and then run 42 kilometers. You would train for running. So you kind of have to, unless you're doing a complete exclusion diet, which most people don't need to do, you would introduce that food very slowly, like starting off with your running training. You start with 1K and then you walk. It's the same with food. You would like literally increments until you build up that resistance and build the gut bacteria back up.
So maybe let's chat a bit about that then. So let's say, and like she's having digestive issues, like she's always feeling a bit bloated, like just, yeah, things are not looking good. Where would one start to say, cool, like these are a couple of practical things you can start doing? I guess you said start with the food diary, but in terms of, are there certain foods that we can include? I know you say you for more adding of things. What else can we do? I guess before we get to what supplements, if any, we should take. But
Yeah.
in terms of our actual lifestyle, like what are things practically we can start doing to improve our gut?
Okay, so to answer this, I just wanted to give you a bit of background around how the gut actually works.
That would be great.
So in total, there's 39 trillion microorganisms that live in and on us. So your oral microbiome, women have a vaginal microbiome, you have your gut microbiome. And when we talk about gut health, we're talking about the microbiome that mainly lives in the large intestine or the colon. And these gut bacteria do a whole bunch of things. They're not just sitting there waiting for food. They actually produce minerals and vitamins like biotin, thiamine, vitamin K, B12. They train your immune system. So if you've got a bad gut, usually more prone to illness because they literally train your immune system. A lot of your immune system is located in your gut. They support your natural detox pathway. So these gut bacteria do a lot in their spare time. And we need to feed them the right foods in order for them to be to be able to function properly. You can't starve them and then expect to be a healthy human. And they feed on plant fiber. So there's some fibers that a human can't digest. Only your gut bacteria can digest them. So soluble and insoluble fibers will make their way through your stomach, your small intestine, and make their way to the gut bacteria, where they actually feed those gut bugs. And then those gut bugs produce short chain fatty acids, and they protect you from all sorts of amazing things. I mean, bad things. They do amazing things. So that's to understand that concept is to understand what you need to do. You need to be feeding that gut bacteria. So if you're only going to be eating 6 types of plant fiber in a week, you're only going to have a very minimal amount of bacteria. They're not going to be very diverse because you're only feeding the gut bugs that eat those 6 types of fiber. So you need to be eating a range of fiber to ensure that you've got a range of bacteria that are being fed. Does that make sense?
Yes. So that means a range of different types of plants or veggies. So you would want to be having pumpkin and zucchini and broccoli and lettuce and tomatoes, not like,
Yes.
and she eats pumpkin every day. My pumpkin bacteria
Yes.
are thriving.
Strong. No, that's exactly it. And they've done a huge study, the biggest study on the human gut microbiome. It's actually called the American Gut Project, where they looked at thousands of gut microbiomes of people sending in their stool samples. And the healthiest and most diverse guts were those who ate 30 different types of plants per week. So that includes seeds, nuts, fruit, veg. And those people have a huge population of gut bacteria. And the more gut bacteria you have, the healthier they are, the better they can do for your overall health.
I think I think that's not, it sounds like a lot, but I think that it is like if you break it up day by day, right, you would want to be having 5 or 6 different kinds a day.
Yeah, it's super easy to reach that number. I know some people, I've done these challenges where I'm like, okay, let's reach 30 this week. And some people quite easily reach 60, adding different seeds and quinoa and all of these different things into your meal. So yeah, that's the goal. That's the first step, is just to increase.
Yeah, I think that that's really cool. And I think that's a really cool goal, especially like I am very much a meal on repeat kind of person. So I think that practically I've never thought of that. So I think that that is a really great insight and a great nugget for everyone who's watching this to take away, to be like, cool. I can repeat my meals every week, like Monday and then Monday, but every day
Yes.
trying to have something different.
Yeah. And I think especially for people that are super busy, it's difficult to be cooking or making 3 different meals. So we often talk of cook once, eat twice. So if you're going to cook something for dinner, have that again for lunch, but just add another plant or 2 into that meal. So
Mm.
sprinkle some sesame seeds over the top and break some walnuts into the salad. And then you've got 2 extra plant points for that day.
I like that. I like that. Okay, so if Andrew's struggling with her gut, you'd say to her, cool 30 varieties of plant fibers every single week. And what else would you say?
So yeah, in that plant points, so the variety, also try add fermented foods in. So sauerkraut, kimchi, some yogurts, like the full cream yogurt at Woolies it's made with live cultures. I'm not too big on the yogurt side of things. But yeah, fermented foods. There is some space for kombucha and stuff as well, but I wouldn't go crazy on it. It's quite high in sugar.
I think with kombucha as well, like
Mm-mm.
once I was like gut health and I drank like the whole kombucha thing and my stomach was so sore because I think again, like you can't add everything at once. And yeah, it is like a
Yes.
super like it's gassy.
Yeah, no. Often, if people are struggling with bloating, that's one of the first things they would tend to stay away from is carbonated drinks, and it's the same with fizzy kombucha. So, yeah, try some sauerkraut or kimchi or miso is also a nice one. And then, in terms of lifestyle changes, 30 minutes of exercise every day. I know that's not practical for everyone, but even if it's a slow walk, just get your body moving. You need to move to get your digestive system to work. And then mindful breathing. These are all things that I'm kind of preaching to myself here. I found myself in a place with a baby where I struggle to fit these things in. But doing some breathing exercises.
It's always the things that we need the most that we tend to neglect. We're like, I heard this quote. They were like, if you don't have time to meditate, it's the day you should meditate twice. Like because that's when you're gonna need it,
It's so true.
when you're dealing with
Yeah.
your crying baby, that's when you need to be mindful and more zen. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the breathing is actually quite interesting because it activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which helps you go into rest and digest, which then helps you digest your food properly.
Right, because the sympathetic nervous system, correct me if I'm wrong, that's the fight or flight. So that's when we're stressed,
Yeah.
we go into fight or flight, and that's when the digestive system is not working, right? Well, it's slowed down, essentially.
Yeah, all
Correct.
the blood moves away from the gut because it goes, okay, I don't need to digest food now. I'm going to put the blood into my legs because I need to run away or into my brain because I need to think about this problem.
Fascinating. The body never ceases to amaze me. Okay, brilliant. So I think that's really great in terms of some practical things that we can do. In terms of probiotics or any supplements, I know that you said, your go-to is not to use supplements, but is there anything, or how do we know that it is a good probiotic? Does everyone need a probiotic? I would love you to just give some insight on that.
Okay, so yeah, probiotics, definitely if you have an issue like IBS or ulcerative colitis, you will probably be prescribed a probiotic, in which case 100% take it. But if you're eating your fermented foods, you don't generally need a probiotic unless you've done a course of antibiotics or whatever. But saying that, sometimes I just will go on a month of probiotics when I can just feel things are a little bit, I'm not so like a and then I generally go for something that's got some other stuff in it as well. Usually I go for the Vibrant Health range because they've got
I've used that. It's
those supplements
amazing.
have got, yeah, it's amazing, and their stuff is scientifically proven. It's gone through clinical trials. It's not just sitting on a shelf with some random advertising. It's really great product, and I'm not by any means associated with them. I just like their product. So yeah, that unless your GP, and many GPs would recommend a certain probiotic. So if that's the case, then go with that. But yeah, if you are looking for one, you would want to look for one that's got lots of different probiotic bacteria in it, not just one or two. But then again, probiotics works quite similar to your general vitamins if you've got a vitamin D shortage, you're not going to be supplementing with vitamin C. So it's so difficult to gauge what probiotic you need. And that's why I just say rely on food, because it's all encompassing. And then if you need that extra bit of help, use a probiotic.
Yeah, that actually makes sense from what you've explained, because it's like the certain probiotics link in with what you need. So if you're just giving them a whole lot of random ones, perhaps it's not the ones that you're missing.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's say one did want to get a probiotic. Are the ones in the fridges and things like Green Vibrance, which goes into the freezer, are those better? And would you say the more expensive range does tend to be better? Because I think you get like just off the shelf cheapos, and then you get the more high end ones. What do you think?
Yeah, so the whole fridge versus freezer thing, I mean, the technology now is pretty amazing that they can actually keep them stable on the shelf. And if you think about it, when you consume the probiotic, it needs to make it through your stomach, which is basically it's battery acid, before it can go to where it belongs. So it needs to have some clinical trials that it's going to make it to where it belongs. That's a big one.
That's so true. We let's make sure they're in the freezer, and then when we put them in our bodies, it's like basically on fire.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's funny.
I mean, I'm a skeptic when it comes to probiotics. I generally stay away from any other brand. I feel like there's so much nonsense out there when it comes to probiotics. So yeah, the Vibrant Health brand, and I also like. Oh no, it's forgotten. It's left me now. There's another one that's in the fridge. It's like an entry level that has got some. So what I like about Vibrant Health is that
is it the Metagenics?
Yeah,
Metagenics maybe
the Metagenics one, and there's that other blue bottle. Sorry, it's like a purple label. It's cheaper than Metagenics, but the reason I like it is because it's got fiber in it. It's got an inulin with the probiotic. So that means it's feeding the bacteria as well. So it's providing some fiber.
Just a note, while we're talking about fiber, I know that, in terms of digestion and that we promote fiber and eating a lot of fiber, but can you also have too much where it actually causes the same sort of issues?
So I think in our Western diets, yes, you can do too much too soon. And if you've got issues like Crohn's or ulcerative colitis or even IBS, there's definitely a limit of your fiber intake and the type of fiber. That's why you probably heard of the low FODMAP diet, which is something that IBS patients would do when they limit the high FODMAP foods, too much fiber. But when we look at some countries in North Africa, they'll eat up to 70, 80 grams of fiber a day and they thrive. So I think our guts are so weakened by what we eat that when we add too much fiber, we do have adverse effects. I mean, I never used to be able to eat onions and broccoli and cabbage, and now I can have those three for dinner and I'm 100% fine. So that's why it's all about starting slowly and building and building and building.
Yeah, so it sounds like your gut is quite adaptive, that it can, if you do have patience and do things slowly. And I guess for a lot of us, our go-to is like, oh, we'll just cut it out and never have it again. But I think it is about patience, and it is about working with your body and slowly but surely getting it to a place where we have a beautiful, thriving, healthy gut. Yeah. Okay, so I know that you have kind of given us three things, but how I sort of want to wrap up just with two questions. So my audience and my community is obviously, we're trying to get lean. We're trying to, for most of us, lose a bit of fat and build some muscle. And I just wanted to know from your perspective what the link is between fat loss and gut health, because I think there's a lot of confusion around that. So I would love your 2 cents on that.
So yeah, this is also such an interesting area. So I'll go quickly through 2 studies. They've actually done studies where they've taken some gut microbiome from an obese mouse and putting it into a lean or thin mouse. and that thin mouse then becomes obese. And they've done the same with twin humans, so identical twins. Genetic codes are exactly the same, and then transplanted some of their microbiome into some sterile mice, and from the obese twin, the mouse becomes obese, and from the lean twin, that mouse stays lean. And we also see that in twins where one is obese and one is lean, the obese twin, and I'm using obese in terms of its medical term, the obese twin will have a very, their gut microbiome is not diverse, whereas the lean twin, their gut microbiome is very diverse. So I don't know, and I think there is a lot still coming out, but the mechanics of it are a bit confusing. And I'll be honest, I don't understand how it all works, but I can tell you that there's 100% a link between the state of your gut and how you metabolize your food, and how you hold on to weight and lose weight.
That's fascinating. That's a very interesting study. And I've actually heard of that. I was actually at a conference and they were talking about the fecal transplants, which I thought was very weird. But I mean, it's unbelievable what changing your microbiome can do. So for all the girls out there that are like, screw a healthy gut, I know that you'll do it for getting lean. I know we're all so bad. We just for the aesthetics, if it makes me look good, then I'm gonna do it. So if nothing else, but of course, I mean, we've mentioned so many things here in terms of your energy, in terms of your skin, in terms of your hair. Like it basically impacts every single thing about you, right?
100%. It does. It's the powerhouse. It's inside.
Yeah. And I think it's exciting as well that I feel like making a difference. It's not like you having to do so many more things. Like that's what I love about the topic of food is that we're already eating, right? So it's just about making better choices and making small tweaks to what we're already doing. And we'll be able to get some amazing benefits from that. So, Meg, I feel like this was so insightful. I think that you are amazing. I think that you've shared so many amazing and practical insights here, and I think we could probably talk for like an hour. We'll probably have to have another discussion around this because I would love to know in terms of females as well, like how hormones are impacting our gut, because I know hormones is like a big topic for everyone, and I definitely feel like my gut can fluctuate depending on where I am hormonally. So I'm sure that you have some interesting insights on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother area. It's massive, the influence between gut and hormone. And it's similar to, the brain-gut connection. It's all connected,
Yeah, I would love to chat more on that. So just thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us and share all of your amazing insights. So I think just before we go, like if someone was walking away from this video, like what is 3 things that you would love for them to take away that are practical, that are, for the everyday girl that can just start improving her gut health? What are 3 things that we all can work on?
Okay, so my first would be look at your diet and start adding more plant variety into your diet. Like I said earlier, aim for the 30 plants per week. Start slowly, otherwise you will be in pain probably, and you'll be like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. So give your gut some time to get ready for the new fiber. And then secondly, it would be to focus on exercise, and do things that support your gut, like slow stretching. That stuff is also great. High intensity is a stressful exercise that can also stress your gut out. So mix those things in. I'm all for high intensity training, but also the slower movements. And then thirdly, it would be spending time outside, time in nature, getting the soil, getting those microbes that are out there available to you for free by walking in the garden or sitting on the beach. The world is full of bacteria and we need to be exposed to it more. Those are 3 simple tips.
Thank you so much. That is fabulous. And Meg, I think that you have so much more to share. So if our amazing Lean Girl community is like, I want to know more about gut health and I want to make this a focus. Where do we find out more from you? More about gut health, what you do, how you support women, where can we find more info on
So
it?
yeah, I'm doing consults on my website, thegoodgutguru.com. I'm slowly starting up with that again, and then obviously my Instagram page. I try and give a lot of free info out there so that it is accessible. Yeah. Otherwise, book a consult with me. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Meg. I'm definitely going to be including all of my 30. You know what, guys? I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna come up with all the veggie recipes for you. Meg has inspired me. You're gonna see all the plant-based recipes
Yeah.
coming out. But that's it from me, girls. I really hope that you enjoyed this new segment. Please comment down below if you have any other questions for myself or for Meg. I will reach out to her and make sure that we get back to you. Otherwise, go and check out her amazing platform where she shares so much great info on gut health. And yeah, guys, I will see you back here next week on the Lean Girl YouTube channel. Ciao.
Storm, a beautiful catastrophe.